Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tome Travelers. This is episode 3, and before we get started, we have a major spoiler warning for the entirety of the Blade itself. In this episode, we are going to be discussing the entire book, so if you have not read all of it, please stop right now and avoid the spoilers. But before we get into those spoilers, we have a fantasy question. Whitson, what is our fantasy question?
Today, we're going to reveal our favorite magic systems.
Ooh. Okay. Who's taking
What
the
is
first?
your numero uno number one magic system? I can take it.
Yeah.
I got mine ready.
You go first.
Okay, Sympathy from The Name of the Wind. All-time
Really good
favorite.
one, yeah.
It's so grounded. I mean, it's completely fantastical, but it's so grounded in it just feels real. It just feels real. Like, if you could do the things that the characters in the book could do, then you could imagine that they would work. That won't make sense to you if you haven't read the books, but it's there. It just feels real. What about you, MD?
Okay, so mine is Stormlight
Oh, okay.
from
Okay.
Stormlight Archive. And
Fair
my
enough.
reasoning for it is because I have never been, like, literally transported to another realm like I was when I read the prologue of The Way of Kings and saw Seth doing, you know, the powers that he was doing then. And I was just like, what is this? This is amazing. Like, when he, spoilers, flipped gravity, it's like I literally saw it and like it was like a movie in my mind, and I've just never experienced a magic system readability like that, if that makes sense. So that's my answer. Stormlight.
That's a solid choice too.
Definitely does give you like I don't know, you get like hyped really easy
Oh,
in
yeah.
that book.
Oh,
those
for
books.
sure.
So I'm kind of gonna mine kind of goes along with Whitson's as far as like seeming real, but I picked alchemy from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Deconstructing and then reconstructing matter. Like I don't know. I really think that is just because there's so many different ways they use it, and it's just I don't know. It's a really cool system to have.
Yeah, I love those magic systems that just make sense, and then the characters are creative within all the rules.
Yeah, they find new ways to use, just normal everyday shit or whatever.
Yeah, they're just metagaming the magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys have a fantasy question that you want us to answer on the podcast, go ahead and leave a comment down in the YouTube comments below. And hopefully we'll try and grab someone's comment and feature it on the next podcast. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into episode 3 of The Tome Travelers. Okay, so for this episode, we're going to talk about all of the book, kind of the Blade itself, but more so we're going to focus on part 2, because that's kind of where we stopped with the other episodes. So I'm going to give a brief synopsis of everything that transpired. So first off, we meet Pharaoh, who is an escaped slave on the run. She meets up with Yulwei, who is also another magi, I think. And
Yes.
he's like, you need to come with me now. And so that happens. Boom, cut back to the council. They meet to determine the fate of the Mercers, who are found guilty of treason, which is really just tax evasion, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, basically.
But they're guilty anyways, and so political intrigue, it happens. And then Giselle over here is at the tournament, and spoiler, he's going to win. Baez shows up with Logan, and Glocta doesn't believe him to be the first Magi, and so Glocta begins to investigate. Fast forward,
They really make a big stink.
Yeah, fast forward, Giselle and Ardy provide a love story for the saps out there. Then Baez takes Glocta to the House of the Maker and unlocks it, proving that he's actually Baez, and he gives Glocta hope that he can rise vertically without stairs, the true enemy of the book. Fast forward, Logan fights a bunch of practicals to save Pharaoh before they prepare to sail off to the edge of the world, and Glocta basically gets to go be the governor of Dogsma, or what's it?
Dagosca.
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 Something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Those are the highlights, at least.
Where the
Yeah.
Gurkish are preparing to sail for the first time
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
first
yeah.
time,
He's
but
basically
in
like-
force.
Yeah, he's basically like, this is really fucking me, but whatever. So,
The
what
fact
did
that it
y'all?
ends with "Why do I do this?"
Yeah,
is
well,
so
he said
amazing.
that at the beginning of the book too, didn't he? I
Yep,
think.
yep,
Yep,
yep.
brings it full circle. But so, what did y'all think about part two in general? I think it really brought like the book together for me. Like I enjoyed part one, but like I wasn't like craving the next book, and then part two like added a bunch of shit that made me want to read the next book, like the overall quest from the main characters
Oh
to
yeah.
deal with this Khalul and Baez fight.
Yeah,
Yep.
I definitely think part two added a lot more elements to the book that made me enjoy it more, but I also think there was a lot of elements to it that were kind of like unnecessary, and we'll kind of get into that as we kind of talk further. So
This is one of my favorite parts of any fantasy book I've ever read, or any book that I've ever read,
ooh, high praise, high
specifically
praise.
because
Yeah, that's a big
That's some
jump.
high praise.
Yeah,
yes, but okay, and we can argue about this later. We were talking before we started recording about Logan, and I know that we will have qualms with one another about that. But that scene where you finally figure out why he's the Bloody Nine and not just Nine Fingers
yeah,
is so chilling to me personally. And then you have all these different like stratospheres of conflict where you have Baez and Kulul at the top,
yeah.
and then you have the governments, and then you have the kind of more petty issues of like the officers and like the adventurers to some extent. And it just feels so real, which like I was saying earlier, is something that I really love in fantasy. It has fantastical elements, like the House of the Maker or Baez using magic, the Eaters, but so much of it is like grounded in the characters and their struggles.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely like really good, but I
I
don't know.
like that. I think my biggest deal is like I like that it added a main quest for like it,
Yeah,
it told us what the main quest is going
that's
to
what
be.
my biggest kind of issue was, like with it so far. Is like I don't know what the main quest is. Is it for like Logan
It,
to like get revenge on those things that attacked him at the beginning of the book, or what exactly is going on here? And I feel like at the end of the book, finally we got we got a direction that we're heading
Yeah,
further on in the trilogy.
yes,
So that's
yep,
yeah,
what
yep.
makes
that
me
that
excited
is
for
That
the next books.
that
yeah,
is a
and
really
that's what
valid critique. Like
yeah.
the plot is so slow in the first book.
Yeah. It's almost like the entire first book is just the exposition for the rest of the trilogy.
Right, but I think
Yeah.
the characters are so good that it's
I will
like
Yeah.
agree. The
you're on
Yeah, the
their
characters
characters,
are
ride.
good.
yeah.
I'm
Um
100% agree with MD though. Like that was like my biggest in part one was like I enjoyed the exposition, I enjoyed the characters, but it was like, well, are we fighting the South? Are we fighting the North? Like what's going on? What's Baez's plan? Like it didn't really it didn't answer any questions, but it also didn't give me any information to like infer like what was going to happen as far as the main quest. And then, like I said, part two and added
What was
that
that?
extra like
what'd you say about part 2?
part two just added like all that extra. Uh,
He cut out again.
I'm cutting out. Well, y'all just go.
Okay. Yeah, so when we get into our ratings later, I do also have complaints about the book as a whole, but I think part two is where things start to really roll downhill and you really get clued into the world. And it like starts swapping from exposition mode to like, rising action kind of. So yeah, part two specifically, I just love.
Yeah.
But okay, so how did we feel about the newest addition to the gang? How did you guys feel about Pharaoh?
Pharaoh.
Okay, I loved Pharaoh's entrance scene. Maybe it's because I came off of the high of the end of part 1 and I was still excited to like go in, and then like we're introduced to Pharaoh and I was like, "Oh, she's kind of she's kind of dope. She's literally like taking out fools left and right or whatever." And Yolwei shows up, and when Yolwei shows up, it was like he has chains, but she said it looked like he was gliding across, like he wasn't even walking or whatever. And I was just like, this is kind of lit. Like I feel like now stuff's going down, and I was really curious to see how she was gonna tie into like everything else, because it took them this long in the book to kind of like introduce them, and so I was
Hmm.
like, I was getting excited. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then further on down the line, when Baez has that quiz for her, and is like, hey, which one of these rocks is red, or what, wasn't it something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
And,
which one's blue?
oh yeah,
Which
which one's
one's blue?
blue? And she says, oh, that one. And he goes, haha, both of them are red. You've passed the
And she just
test.
jumps him.
Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, but what does this mean? Like, is there like another type of magic system that Baez has been looking for and she has it? Like, I don't know what's happening here. I have so many questions. Pharaoh is definitely one of my new characters to watch out for if we go into the second and third books, which I really want to. That's my take on Pharaoh. I love her.
Yeah, I really liked her too. She's definitely got a lot of past trauma.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Definitely has some bad things that have happened to her. Obviously with slavery, we know how she feels about that. But she's got all these people looking for her, so we know she's going to be really important. There's something special about her. She doesn't feel pain, or she feels very little pain, I guess is what it said. But she has unnatural strength, speed, all that. And so it's like, why, is she special? She's obviously not an eater, which we learn out they've kind of got some of that stuff too. But what I like about her is, like, even though like she's like this really damaged person, and like you can tell like she doesn't really want to fuck with anybody, and then like she just wants revenge, like she still shows like a lot of loyalty to the people she ends up hanging out with. Like Logan, like she keeps saying, like at the end when she's carrying him, she keeps saying like, if you don't, or if you stop, I'm gonna give you up. But she never does, and he stops like
Yeah.
5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's kind of a hard character to pin down. Like at times she's like the most violent and ferocious, and then sometimes she's just a softie out of nowhere.
I think that's what I like about her, because it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
You never know
I mean,
what way the scene's
she's
gonna go.
She is kind of feral, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's just acting on instinct a lot of the time, whether that's for better or for worse. Okay, so where did you guys land on Giselle? Because he's easily my least favorite character, and I know it's on purpose. I know
Yeah.
the author wants you to hate him, but every time I'm reading a chapter from his perspective, I'm just annoyed at him.
I think he's about to get a dose of reality, and as part 2 goes on, you can see he's really starting to straighten up. Like he's drinking less, he's training, he's not worried about gambling, and I know a lot of that's got to do with Artie,
which is so hilarious to me. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's what
it's
their
just
whole-
all good things that men do are motivated by women they
By
want to
women.
impress.
Yeah. Well, that's what he says. He
The great
says
philosopher Joe
he's-
Abercrombie.
he's like, why do I like this chick? He's like, oh, she doesn't like me. I've never had that before. And it's like
Yeah.
it's like such
so-
a toxic
Yeah,
reason.
it's such
he's
like a
I'm a
prick
prove wrong.
thing too. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's still vain as fuck. Like even throughout the whole, like finally at the end, literally the last sentence is like, "Well, at least I'm still alive," and that echoes back to like what Logan was saying the whole time. And I really think that they're gonna like get close. And honestly, I think that's the whole group's motto. At least I'm still alive.
yeah.
But
Yeah, they are a desperate band.
Yeah, I don't know. Giselle's chapters to me were kind of like just boring. If I'm being honest, it was just kind of like, oh, it's another Giselle chapter, and most of it kind of was because like a lot of the filler, I wouldn't say filler, but it felt like there was a lot of just filler fights in the book that were the tournament, and I wasn't that invested in Giselle's success at that current time.
Yeah.
So it was just boring for me to read, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, but I think you're really not supposed to be rooting for him, and then when Baez cheats, you're supposed to be pissed. I think that's the intention.
Well,
Right.
see, so I took it a different way. Like the way I agree with MD, it really did almost feel like filler. Like it's
Yes,
like
yeah,
it's just this filler character. But we see Baez cheat, and obviously, and Baez includes him in the Maker, the trip to the Tower of the Maker.
Yeah.
So like, and he brings him on the trip at the end. So this guy's obviously important. There's some reason he wanted him to win the tournament so that he could come. And like, and that's why another reason I think he's gonna grow. I think he has the potential, a character we could really like. I think.
yeah.
It's just seeing how he gets there. But I know he's gonna be important.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's with the group.
Yeah, Baez does nothing by accident.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, how do you feel about the romance? Where you at on that?
Artie reminds me of some exes, man. Just,
Well, we
just
grew up in Arkansas, so yeah,
yeah,
that'd do it.
yeah.
Jeez.
Well, so like, let me find my notes about her real quick. But she's really good at leading him by his uh the hand, you know?
Yeah, his hand.
Yeah, yeah. She knows what to do. She's extremely intelligent. Uh, do we think Giselle's the only one she's like messing around with? Because all those rumors
That's
kept
what I'm
popping up.
wondering about.
Yeah.
So, hmm. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think it's safe for me to say her character enjoys the
Attention.
yeah, but more like the infamy. Like she wants people to
To talk.
to hate her and gossip about her, but
Yeah.
she's not.
Well, that kind of goes into like she's like no one's gonna talk or no one's talking to me, like pay attention to me. So it's like
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
if even if they're talking bad about me, at least they're still talking about me,
Right. Well,
kind
it
of
says
deal.
somebody's acknowledging that I
Yeah.
exist. Yeah. So,
So
but I don't think she's actually a really like selfish or nefarious person.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering like why, like she says that at least Giselle won't hit her, you know. But is like that is that
Yeah.
the only reason she's with like getting with him? Like
Yeah, because
is
that's kind of toxic.
yeah. Yeah, kind
Well, I
of.
mean, they're
Well, it's
perfect for each other then. No,
yeah.
True.
I think he's just not as boring as the other guys. Even though he's a vain idiot, he's not as boring as the other dudes that she's talked to in Adjua. And he's the one that's infatuated with her.
Right. Well, because even
Well,
Giselle said like she's not as pretty as all the other girls. Like she doesn't like
But
Yeah.
fit
then he
that
finds her way prettier than.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's
That's
kind
what
of
makes her, more attractive. That she doesn't fit like the beauty standards of this world or whatever, and that's what's intriguing to him about her. So
well, I
so
really think
do
there
we
was a lot of honesty in him saying like the reason he liked her is because she didn't like him.
okay, but
yeah. Oh, for sure.
do we think it's love or do we think that's lust? Because like
Ooh.
he'll talk about her all the fucking time, and then how different she and then right at the end he'll be like, I wonder how I can fuck her. I wonder how I can get her into bed. And like
Yeah.
that's always like the final thing he says. And so like I was thinking lust throughout the whole book until he sees her with the bruises, and he's like, it hurt me to see her with the bruises. That's
Yeah.
the only thing that made me think he might actually love her.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think he's expressing love the only way as
He
a
knows how.
vain, arrogant
Yeah.
asshole he can. And like it's shallow, but it's still to him it's love.
Yeah.
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 Well, they do.
It's,
His buddies do laugh at him when they're like, maybe he loves her. So we
yeah.
know like that's not his thing.
That's not his MO. He's not a serial monogamist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And how did you guys feel about the West and Artie scene?
So okay. First off, I want to. Wes has anger issues, obviously, but he always gets a headache with it. I'm wondering if there's an outside influence because, like, I mean, I get like he got beat as a child too, and like that anger can always be there, but like it's really weird because, especially in the first part of the book, we don't see that from him at all, even in stressful situations. But then in the second part of the book, he starts getting these headaches
Yeah.
more and more, and every time he has a headache is when he has an anger issue. And he's talking about there that scene exactly. He's got the headache, and all he can think about is like he gets to his door and he's like, oh, Artie's here, and then immediately he's like thinking about her and Giselle naked, and like it's like constantly shit that would bother him's popping in his head. So I'm wondering if there's like maybe an outside influence.
That is a totally plausible angle that I've never considered, having read all of the books. And looking back on it, it's still totally plausible. I just never thought about that. Yeah, that's really interesting. How did you feel about it, MD?
It was just one of those like kind of I didn't really care that much about Artie, and so I didn't really care that much about West either. Like So it was just kind of one of those things that was like, okay, this is happening. I mean, it's uncomfy to read, but yeah, it's whatever. I'm hoping to move on to the next thing because I honestly was way more intrigued by all of the like political intrigue that was happening throughout the entirety of this book than Artie's storyline or Giselle's storyline. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, like Wes is kind of an a-hole for doing it, but you know,
I don't know. That's another one of those things that like if you didn't have the best time as a kid, like it just rang so fucking true.
yeah,
I mean, and even if you did have a decent time as a kid, somebody who has, that kind of thing going on in their life. So to me, it
Yeah.
was really powerful. But, I can also see why his storyline wouldn't be the most endearing.
yeah,
Well, I think he's definitely gonna be important because, like, so when they're at dinner, Logan is telling him all this stuff about Bethod, and we know that
you
You
cut
cut
out.
out a little.
Yeah.
West is. I think he's gonna be really important in the battle for the North.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Um, Now how that unfolds, we'll have to see. But
Yeah. I'm so excited for you guys to read about Prince Ladislaw's adventures in the North.
bro, I hate that motherfucker so much.
Yeah, he's even worse than Giselle somehow.
Like, so
Jeez.
what do y'all think about the king having that like thing where that like lapse of okay, obviously Hoff is running the government. We know that at this point. Like
Yes.
the
Right.
king
Well,
is
the close council, and that
I
then
I feel
Hoff
like
is
he's
his
just
mouthpiece.
yeah, I feel like Hoff is just well, I feel like Hoff is almost just signing shit himself, getting drunk,
Oh,
just
for sure.
yeah. But
Wait,
so do you think that when he calls Ladislaw weak and Renault strong says that the second son's more suited for the crown, that something's going to happen there? Because Ladislaw wants to go up and fight, and so I'm wondering if maybe there's going to be like some, get rid of him while he's up north. We can say the Northmen did it, and then Renault takes over, and
oh yeah.
Who's to say?
yep,
Yeah.
But yes, the Prince's adventures in the North are hysterical,
I
if nothing else.
I really think though, like while we're still kind of like talking about Giselle and the king, that moment where, Giselle won the tournament and he goes to like get accepted from the king or whatever, and the king like is in a drunken like stupor, wakes up and thinks it's his son and brings him in as a hug. And you just see like the like disgust on the queen's face and the anger like from the princess and just
oh,
confusion
Princess
around.
Therese,
Yeah.
Yeah, Princess
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Therese too.
So
But it looks like to everyone else that the king just hugged this
yeah,
guy. And so it's
yeah,
just like this crazy, like, he even said it was the most embarrassing thing that could have happened, but no one would know because if that got found out, then like
yeah,
it's
oh, yeah,
wraps for the king,
yeah. So Princess Therese is the daughter of Grand Duke Orso, which I know from from the other book.
Oh yeah, you
Yes.
do
Oh,
know about that.
so yeah. So I kind of have an inkling of
Oh,
things
you
that
should
happen.
know so many other things too.
Yeah,
But
well, I kind of have certain other things that I know, but
okay,
Meanwhile, I'm
well,
over here with no connections whatsoever.
yeah, but
well, in my defense, I gave Dylan the order to read the books in, and he chose to read them out of order.
no, you told me. So you told me that the
Well, they were
uh
standalone novels, but
well, but you gave
they're
me the second set of three, and Best Served Cold was the top one, and somehow that got mixed up, and I thought that it was the very first book, and I was really confused.
well,
But
okay. So it's gonna be
speaking of,
hard for now. We're both gonna have to avoid spoilers.
well, I don't remember a lot of things you're probably thinking. Like I do
Well, that's for the
remember,
best.
yeah, I do remember her, and you know well, yeah, I remember her. Um, so MD, you were talking about political intrigue. What do we think about this whole uh the bank situation? Okay, so obviously the Archlector or Salt has control of that trade agreement now because
Yeah.
of the court case and all that. So he's probably pulling in bank, and they go after that guy. What's his name? Colt.
Yeah, Magister Colt.
Colt. So they go after him, and he's like, "Hey, if you really want to find like what's going on, go look at the banks and all this stuff."
And then he
And
jumps out
then
of the window, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then Glocta asks Salt about it, and Salt's like, "Oh, leave that bank alone." Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's
okay.
something smelly going on in there for sure. And I don't know. I definitely want to find out like what it is, but Salt's definitely like I feel like he made a deal with some people so that he could like have this big power maneuver, and then Baez just showed up and it ruined
Ruined
everything.
everything.
And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that deal that he made with the banks is gonna backfire on him. Whatever deal it was, I don't know what it is, but it's gonna be a major backfire on him, and that's why he was like on Glock to like go find out what we can use against this Baez impersonator, which
Yeah.
turned out to actually be Baez. But
Yeah, which he was still insistent after he had opened the house of the maker that he was fake.
yeah,
Just Salt is so insufferable. That last
Oh, yeah.
scene where they're talking about the 20 practicals is so funny.
yeah, it's like 20 practicals, and he said, but what do you mean, but? My favorite part is when who is it? Someone just repeats what he says as like a question. He goes, "Is there an echo in here? Like, what's happening?"
Glocta, yeah, Glocta
Yeah.
says that. Because, well, Glocta, I feel like Glocta is just so much smarter than everyone around him.
Oh my
But
god,
like
I love him.
he keeps it to himself, and so like he's having this whole inner monologue and just agreeing with what everyone says. But then
Yeah.
like he'll hear some things and he can't believe they came out, so he'll repeat them. And it's just like, yeah, it cracks me the fuck up.
Yeah.
But okay, speaking of that scene though, what do we think about this Goyle guy?
It's a
So
chick,
he's
right?
a worm. No, that's Fatari.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no,
That's
I thought we were
Shiloh
talking about the
Fatari.
in the book. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah. Never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, yeah.
I have thoughts on that too.
Goyle is a snake, and look, I think the fact that he was in control of a prison camp for so long, and like, well, no, he's in charge of all of Angland. I think it said he's in control of all of Angland, which is all the prison camps. Like, he is just a particularly filthy human being
Yeah.
Yeah.
among a bunch of filthy human beings.
So like I'm kind of like I'm thinking he's got something to do with the eaters, because as soon as so they find that body in the woods that's obviously been eaten by a human, like the physician says that, and he like basically covers it up, and it happened as soon as he gets there, and then Salt is talking about how like they earlier in the book he's like, yo, we can't like step out of line, we can't go after these people, but Goyle sends his people after Pharaoh, who the eaters were also after. So like I'm wondering, is there a connection there?
Yeah, the whole dogs scene
Oh yeah.
is really weird, and like I still don't really. Yeah, it's just hard to figure out why he's so committed to it just being dogs.
Bacchus comments though crack me up. Did rabid ones jump over the walls, or was it was it the domesticated ones? Yeah, well that's what it seemed so out of place. It made me wonder if there was something going on. Especially because it happened, he as soon as he showed up is when the body was found. So
Yeah,
it made me wonder,
yeah, but it also coincides with like Baez showing up and Pharaoh showing up,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
think yeah, I think no, it's before Yolway and Pharaoh get there.
Yeah, it's before y'all went,
Yeah.
but
You'll
it
and
was
Pharaoh
20.
got there later.
But it was like 20. I think he said it was like 20 foot from where Baez and them were staying.
Yeah. Well, and remember that it was on the same night that Glokta got visited in that dream.
True, true. So let's talk about those dreams.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about those dreams.
The dreams are really interesting. Man, I can't remember the exact. Well, let me look up the scene.
Here, I got a couple notes about it. I'll talk while you. So, we see Logan see this chick that's using his wife's voice. He hears his wife, but I think obviously, which we'll see from Glokta's dream, that the whatever it is can impersonate sound or people's voices or whatever. But then we get to Glokta's dream, and it's impersonating his mom and then Salt, and then it like ask him where the seed is, and it's after he finds this
Oh, that's right. That's what it was doing.
yeah.
Asking where the seed is.
Well, it's after he finds this scroll, you know. And then
Yeah.
I think it like grabs him and he feels it when he wakes up. He feels where it grabbed him. And like he talks about how his door is always locked. Like he's mentioned that multiple times and his door was unlocked. So I'm really wondering, is this like a physical manifestation? Is this some kind of like spiritual thing that's like getting out of the spiritual area or realm, whatever they're talking about?
Yeah. What's the name of the Northern Sorceress? Caldress or
Oh
Oh,
yeah, they mentioned her name like once.
here, I think I've got it written down somewhere. Um, it's something weird, like it does start with a C though. Okay.
Flip open my book.
let's see.
Yeah, I might have had it on my podcast notes that I deleted from last time. It is C something. It's
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Starts with a C. Uh, well,
but
whatever.
either way,
The Northern Sorceress.
you thinking it's her?
Well, okay. The first time I read through, that was the first thing that jumped in my head because
Yeah.
it appeared as a woman, I think a bald woman, to two different people. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it appeared to Glockton and Logan, it appeared as a woman, but it used other people's voices.
Right, but I thought it was like a bald woman, like Logan thought, but then she got closer and like he heard her voice and like he thought it was his wife.
Yeah, she could have been bald, but I get what
Well,
you're saying. Like
either
it could
way,
have been.
that was
Yeah,
my first instinct was it was like, oh, this is the Northern Sorceress. And then, obviously the eaters get introduced, and I'm like, well, what all can they do? Like, could it have been one
Yeah.
of the eaters?
yeah. Well, so I feel like it's more. So the Eaters is breaking the second law. And
Yeah.
I feel like whoever this is breaking the first law because it's using people's voices. It's like coming to in dreams. It looks like a ghost, or I imagine it looks like a ghost. But
Hmm.
it says that she says I was there when the Maker fell. I'm a part of an old war that's years in the making, and I'm a patient woman, but patient no more. So it is a woman.
Oh
She
yeah, yeah,
addressed
yeah.
herself as a woman, but she's obviously old because said she was there when the Maker fell. So is she one of the other one of the other 11?
Yeah, one of the Magi.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if this Khalul person's a man or a woman yet. I'm assuming it was a man, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's actually used a he or she.
Yeah, I don't know if it's specified. Oh, I think Bias has said brother,
Possibly, possibly. So, but Khalul, it says Khalul left before the 11 went after
the Maker.
the master maker. It says he wasn't there. So I'm wondering like why he started making eaters and started breaking the second law because that's obviously like a big deal with Juvens was like not don't break the first law, don't break the second law. And like they go into him and Yolwe go into it when they're talking about the seed and he's like why are you breaking the first law? Like you're not supposed to do this. And then he's like I
Yeah.
got fight fire with fire.
Yeah. Well, so I don't think that the fringe cultures that have magic, I don't think that they're like operating under Juven's teachings, and Bias says like all magic is touching the other side.
Yeah.
So I think that they're just like a little more fast and loose with it. So maybe they can do like some more devious stuff than the Magi practicing the, high art.
So these eaters, they kind of remind me. So, I think it's Native American like mythology, Wendigo.
Is that like the Skinwalkers?
Yeah, skinwalkers.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what an eater reminds me of. And obviously, like a Wendigo, actually, that's how they become when they eat the flesh of humans, and they get like the speed, the strength, the eternal life, or whatever. But we see they don't die. They get shot. Pharaoh shoots them with arrows, and it does nothing. Their blood is just dust. But then you always uses fire for one and water for the other. He said
Yeah.
whatever works for their kind. But is it like
But
fire and water, or is it just magic in general?
I don't know.
I
Well, because
think
here's the
it's
thing. he said he turned their bones to water.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. Like, he killed them from the inside out, which is kind of
Yeah.
insane. Which
Yeah.
we still don't have, like, a full-on definition of how powerful the Magi are. Like, what all
Yeah.
they can do and stuff.
Well, and Yolway didn't seem like so. Like every time Bethod uses or Baez uses magic, like it wears him down. But Yolway didn't. It didn't seem like that for him. And he's got like this illusion magic or some kind of like he can
Well,
remain unseen.
yeah.
But he
Well,
can also use the fire and water.
Baez was saying something about how, like, magic's running, like, it's running out. It's slipping away or something. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, and that's
in
why he says it bothers him. But it didn't seem like it bothered Yolway.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about. So.
Well, I think it's just magnitudes, right? Because like when Baez does tiny little things, it doesn't really wear on him. But when he's like, evaporating matter around him with like white hot flames, then that like really drains him. Or when he's moving Giselle's steels like superhuman fast, like that wore on him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when he does like tiny little things, it's not like he's not sweating and like
Like when
looking
he breaks
old
the
all of a
chair.
sudden. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's just like a snap of the fingers for him. So I think Yolway is just doing a lot of small things,
Yeah.
except for the eaters when he kills the eaters. But it doesn't say that he's winded then either. So you're
Yeah.
right. It's like maybe he doesn't have a cost or as much of a cost.
Well, Bethod or Baez was also the first, so maybe it's hitting him first.
Ooh.
Yeah, or I mean, he could just be a lot older.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's just wearing on him quicklier. Wow, that's a word.
That's a word. Okay, so where did you guys land on Glokta's arc? Like where it wrapped up, him heading to Dagaska?
I loved it. Glocta's my favorite character in the book. He deserves an award. Like, genuinely, I think you could, like, associate a lot of characters and most characters in this book with, like, tropes. And I really did not pin Glocta down. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, he's kind of like
Yeah.
this snaky guy, but I mean, I just love his, like, quick-wittedness, even though he never said it. Like, you always saw what he said to other people, and then you always saw what he wanted to say, and I loved that. And I just feel like this whole, like, arc of him, especially, like, the arc of him trying to find out if Baez is Baez, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
in the first part of the book, you really get to see Glocta, like, get what he wants out of people by, like, torture, essentially. And in the second part of the book, he can't do that to Baez, so he's having to, like, figure out other ways to investigate. And I like to see that arc of him, like, oh, I can't just beat it out of them, let me try and figure it out this way. And he's always saying, I still don't believe him, I still don't believe him, I still don't believe him. And then, like, when he finally went in the tower, he's still in unbelief. He's like, there's no way. There has to be, something that's happening with this. Like,
Until
it's
the
not him.
stairs. Until
Facts.
the stairs.
It
And
took
then he
the
accepts that there
stairs.
is magic.
It took
Yeah.
the stairs, the real enemy of the
Well,
book.
he says something like, "Who else could this be but the first of the Magi?" At
Yeah.
one point, so
Yeah,
you can see like he starts to accept it.
Yeah, and I think the fencing contest also had a lot to do with that because he's like, I know fencing, and this is
Yeah.
not possible. He's like,
Yeah.
this Gorst should have destroyed
Yeah.
him.
Well,
Yeah.
what I liked about that too is though, like, you can tell Glock is obviously the better fencer because he says that, and then Giselle's meanwhile is like, "I'm the best in the world."
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, he just fully accepts that he got 10 times better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's the crazy thing about how shitty everyone is to Glokta is like he was the best swordsman in the world, and then he was a prisoner of war, and now he's like shunned.
Well, he
Yeah.
can't offer anybody anything. Like
Yeah.
that's what I really enjoyed the scene where Wes comes to him and is like, "Hey man, I tried to see you," and Glock is like, "Oh wow, there's no big
Yeah.
conspiracy." Like,
His heart grew 2 sizes that day.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's so
Yeah.
good.
Dude,
So
I also
heartwarming.
loved like at the end of the book, whenever like he's sent on as the governor and he's like, yeah, this person's gonna come with you or whatever. He's like, oh dang, or whatever. I don't know. He walks out there and it's that chick and she's in pain too, and she's like, I need you to help me like get up or whatever. Like, me, not knowing anything about this chick whatsoever, and all I see is Glock to go, someone knows my pain. I'm going to help. And I was just like, I want them to fall in love.
Well, but then he's really happy that she's in pain.
more
while-
I know, but
while
that
she's
makes-
hobbling after him.
I know, but it's just like, that's what Glockta deserves. He deserves to be happy, and she makes
So-
him happy because she's
so-
in pain. And if that's bad, that's bad. But Glockta's my favorite character, and I just want him to be happy.
Well, what do y'all think about Glockta and Artie? Do we see maybe they got along really good, you know? Or maybe we're gonna see an Artie relationship, or maybe we're gonna have a practical Artie. What do y'all think
I
about
don't know.
practical Artie?
I don't know, because Glockta did say something earlier on in the book where I think he was talking to Giselle or something about women, and he goes, yeah, I'm glad I'm over them too, or something like that. Like, he was just done with it.
He's also mentioned a couple times that he does not have the apparati anymore.
Yeah,
Like that happened to him in the prison cell. So he can't have a sexual relationship. He could have a romantic relationship with her, but
yeah. I think practical Artie would be pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
think-
she's definitely a badass. I don't know if she can handle herself in a fight, but
You can learn that. She,
You
I
can
assume,
learn that. And she's going to
yeah.
have a pretty good coach soon.
well, I'm assuming she's gonna go south with him. I'm assuming she's gonna go to Dagosca with him.
you think Artie's going to go to Dagosca with him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming so. He told West he was going to take care of her. They seem to really hit it off, and that's where he's going. Like, why would they put in that, hey, take care of my sister, and they have this meeting, and then he's like, oh, I'm leaving, and like doesn't take care of her.
I think it's just supposed to be ironic.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's my take on Glockta.
That's your take on Glockta. Do
One of
you
my-
have anything else about Glockta, Dylan?
One of my favorite comments was when he's meeting all Logan and them for the first time, and he meets Kwai, and he's like, if he's a wizard apprentice, I'm the Emperor of Gurkle. And then Kwai keeps talking, and in his head he's like, kneel before the mighty Emperor of Gurkle. And I was laughing my ass off, bro. I was
Oh,
like-
it's so funny. I really think Glockta is kind of a self-insert for Joe Abercrombie because he gets all of the good lines.
Yeah,
and he's
he
just like
does.
this beloved character, and like maybe he's like exercising some I don't know, like some darker part of himself through Glockta, but Glockta gets all the good lines.
Well, he's
Oh, yeah.
almost like outside the book with his comments in his head. Like it's like
Yeah.
Glockta's a character, and there's almost like a narrator that's like just saying what Glockta's saying.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's come to the part of the podcast where we scream and shout and dissolve friendships because
Oh, God.
Logan is my favorite character
Oh,
besides Glockta in different
Okay.
ways.
Okay.
In different ways.
Yeah.
Glockta still has the throne in most ways, but Logan is my favorite character to just sit with for a chapter here and there, and he's the character I like not understand because like I'm not a fucking psychopath, but like I don't know. There's something that's like male wish fulfillment about Logan just going berserk and handling his problems in the worst possible way. Like and then
See,
it's just so chilling when he goes from Nine Fingers to the Bloody Nine. And like I have a lot of bias here because I've read the next two books. And you only really get the one moment of it in this book, and it's really like brief and not as terrifying, I'll say.
See, I really like Logan for a different reason.
Okay,
Like-
go for it.
They show up to the city or whatever, or Ardua, I guess that's
Adua.
Yeah, Adua. He's blown away by everything. He's amazed at all these. Like you can definitely tell he's like
Yeah.
from the boonies. He's amazed all these different people even exist. Like he says hundreds of thousands of people. That's crazy. I'm used to like 30 people. And then like even though everyone's being a dick to him, he treats everyone like really nicely, and like he's really soft spoken and like
Yeah, it's his like insanely like stark duality that I really
Yeah.
like about him, where he's like this kind, patient, wise, kind of like grizzled old veteran, and then if if he gets to a breaking point, that's when the murderous psychopath comes out. But the
So
rest of the time, he's like this peaceful, like kind person.
Yeah.
really smart,
Like,
really
I
intelligent.
think there was even a moment where like Glockta was like following him around or whatever, and he was like, "Report back to me." And they said he just went and stood and like stared at a fountain for like a like a couple hours. And Glockta's like, "What's the meaning?" And it's really just Logan like, "Wow, there's water." Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pipe.
he's trying to figure out the pipes.
it's
He's
like
trying to
it's
figure out how the
almost like
pipes
an
work.
innocence, but that innocence can turn into just this murderous like being, you know?
It's
Or
just
like the
brutally violent. But
Yeah.
I
The
think
bathroom.
the I'm still alive is so good to me because of the Bloody Nine.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know how or why he's survived anything in his entire life. Like he's just like, oh no, I just lived, I guess. I got lucky.
So are we thinking like multiple personality disorder?
Oh no.
I,
I would
I
say
think it's
no.
more magical than that, personally, but I mean, I don't want to like I don't want to like broadly say like X, Y, or Z will never happen
Right.
because I don't want to ruin anything for anyone. But whatever is happening is not of Logan's volition.
Right.
At least Logan's. He could have multiple personalities. It could just literally be a separate part of him. But
Yeah.
I personally my fan theory is that it's like a little more magical than that.
Yeah. I think he's going to be really important too.
You cut out.
Yeah, you cut out. He's important to what now?
And I almost got like the vibe. I really think he's going to be important. Like I almost got the vibe that like that what happens in the end is going to rest on him because like when they're talking to the guy that gives them their clothes, and he asks how the story ends, Baez is like that remains to be seen, and then looks at Logan, and then when they're talking about the seed, he's like, oh, Logan can talk to spirits. So like I really think he's going to have a huge swing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Baez definitely needs every one of them to get the
Right.
seed, to get what he wants. Like he has to have someone who can talk to the spirits, and he has to have Pharaoh, and he has to have Giselle.
But what does he need Giselle for? That's my question.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
That's because it's like if you really wanted the best swordsman, you would have just let the fight go out by itself and taken the
Yeah,
true
he
winner.
would have taken Brimmer Dangors
Exactly.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 times.
But no, you cheated so Giselle would win. Why?
Why, indeed?
What do we think this seed is?
I think Glockta should have an interrogation session with Baez and figure out why. It's my personal opinion. I would love to read that chapter.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you get Baez locked into a chair?
True. I'm just saying that's my dream chapter. It's never gonna happen.
That's your
but-
dream chapter. What was your question, Dylan?
I said, what do we think this seed is?
I have no
I'm
idea.
I'm gonna let you
Genuine.
guys speculate.
Genuine no idea.
The only thing that I can think of is the seed of magic, and maybe if they can get that back, they can keep the magic from leaving.
Oh.
But that is the only thing that like is popping in my head. Like I can't think of anything else. Although it
That would-
mentions
That would make sense though, because then it's like, why now is it that Baez is showing up to take a seat back on the council? Because he
Yeah.
needs to be in places or whatever to do this, so he can bring back magic because he's losing it. That would make sense.
right. Well,
Because that answers why now.
Well, he mentions that they're hard. Kalul's making more eaters, but they're having a hard time making more wizards or magi.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Maguses.
Magus's. So it's like there's a reason for, and then he says the magic that's come up multiple times. The magic is leaving, but it's like this seed is obviously something that is otherworldly because it mentions that all four of the brothers, which I think we only had two of their names, the Master Maker and Juvens.
Canadius, Juvens, and Glustrad are the three
Glustrad.
that are mentioned.
Yeah, but it destroyed all of them each. Like each one's downfall was caused.
Yeah. Yep, and then it also he specifically ties it into his plans to deal with Kalul.
Yeah.
When he's talking to Yulwei, he says he has to use it and he has to break the first law
law,
because of
yeah.
Kalul.
Yeah. So it's got something to do with that. And then like, so they need Pharaoh to hold it. I'm assuming they need Logan to get it because it's got something to do with the spirits, or maybe like make it work. And then once Logan makes it work or gets it through the spirit world, uh, Pharaoh's got to hold it. And now I don't know what Giselle's got to do, obviously, but um, I'm thinking that. So it mentions that the Master Maker threw his own daughter off the top of the tower, and that uh, and then Yolway tells him when he's like, "Hey, will you look after Pharaoh?" He's like, "I hope you look after her better than you did the Master Maker's daughter." I'm wondering if the Master Maker's daughter was the original holder of the seed, or not, maybe not the original, but like the holder of the seed for the Master Maker, like Pharaoh's gonna be.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting theory. Yeah, and then it also mentions that she's how like somehow how Baez got into the tower.
And he's pissed about it. Like every time she gets brought up, he's pissed. I'm assuming there's a love interest there, and like something bad happened, but like he does not like when people bring that up.
Yeah, no, that is a sore spot for him. Okay, well, so what questions? What's the biggest question that you want book two to answer?
What's at the end of the world?
Okay, that's a good one.
um, I don't know. I really want to know. I'd like to know what everyone's part is and like why they matter and like what Kulul's purpose is because it doesn't really mention that. It just mentions he's making eaters. So I want to know Kulul's purpose and why Baez has to stop him.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's probably the biggest question of the trilogy. That's a good one. And do you have any harebrained theories? Well, I mean, we've gone over quite
Yeah,
a few.
we
I've
definitely
said a lot of
have
mine.
gone
I've
over
said
a
a lot
bunch
of
of
Okay,
mine.
them.
okay, all right. Well, so
I
let's just restate a little bit. What do you think your most like left field crazy theory is?
Oh, I can't even remember.
Oh gosh. Maybe that Artie goes down with Glokta and like maybe a rekindled relationship happens with them and then Giselle shows up later and now there's going to be this whole triangle of love. I feel like that's a plausible theory. It's not like very out of
See,
left field.
No,
maybe I'm
I like that.
maybe I'm just like a pessimist, but like I would like to see Artie become like a practical and then just
You know?
Yeah, you
they'll
cut out.
like, hey,
Uh,
I would like to see her become a practical and then like use her like or Glock to use her to figure out what's going on with all them and Giselle tell her and then she runs back and tells Glock to like
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I'd
use
like
her
to
as a
see that.
pawn.
Yeah, use her as a pawn.
Okay, all right. So let's do our ratings, and we're gonna do
Well, one sec.
three. Oh, okay.
I got a couple more notes. Okay, first off, MD, what were you gonna say about Vatari? Because you said you had something to say about her.
She was the
The
chick
redhead.
at the end.
Oh yeah. We didn't even get into the arguments. So what were your issues with the Logan versus the Practicals scene? Logan and Pharaoh versus the Practicals.
Oh, yeah. So I just genuinely think it was action burnout for me at that point because, like, I genuinely, for me on this book, I felt more enamored by the political intrigue than I did by the action scenes. So, like, I felt like Giselle training and fighting were kind of boring. And, like, every time there was kind of like a fight scene, I didn't really see the reason for why it had to happen. Like, I much more preferred like finding out about the Mercers and wanting to know what's going on with the banks and all of these different relationships that, you know, Glock does faking and things like that. And so whenever we kind of get to this like scene where Logan just kind of like breaks out and goes like rage berserk for, you know, 20 pages. Yeah, it's cool, but I just wasn't super invested into it.
Okay. Well, okay. So what about the violence in the North? Because I feel like the Northman's like
Oh, like
side
the
story,
scene, yeah, like where who was it that goes in and gets
Forley,
beheaded?
Forley the weakest.
Forley,
Yeah,
yeah,
Foley goes
yeah. The
in.
weakest goes in, he gets beheaded, and they come out like that was still cool and all, but I felt like that was cool because it was like a legitimate standoff. Like we need to go in there
Yeah.
to warn them about, you know, what's the Shanka,
Yeah,
like
the
Yeah.
Shenko.
genuinely like and I thought that was cool because also at the end of that there was a clear like, where are you headed? We're going south to fight against
to
him.
fight
Like
Bethog,
there was a
yeah.
clear like reason for that fight. You know what I'm saying? And like this was just almost like, oh, Farrah ran away. We gotta go save Farrah. Oh, Farrah's
Yeah.
being surrounded by practicals. Here we go. You know what I'm saying? Like it didn't really feel like it had to happen. But I
Feels
feel like the
Logan
reason why it
stumbled into it.
yeah, it felt like it happened because Joe Abercrombie wanted to have this epic scene of Logan. It didn't feel like super like natural. That's just my kind of
Yeah, it
complaint
is-
on it.
Well, that
I'll
feels
give you
like-
that. It is a little plot devicey, but yeah, I don't know. To me, like almost all of the violence is either in the deep south where Pharaoh is trying to escape, or in the north where they're at war, and the Northmen are just so blunt and straightforward about everything. Where it's just like, well, they killed kids, so of course they have to die.
Right.
Or they killed Forley, so they have to die.
Well-
Like it's not personal. Like when they kill the kid, that scene is so depressing, but you're
Yeah.
also just like, well, I mean, they have a point. Like
I feel
what are
like
they
it
gonna
is
do with them?
personal. I feel like they feel like a family, and like even though like they're the Northmen and they're rough, like they have a code of honors, and I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when
it's
they
a code
killed
of
the
honor
kid,
thing. It's like a chivalry thing.
they broke their code of honor, and when they killed Forley, they killed a member of their family. Like
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it definitely gets personal, especially with the dog man killing Bad Enough.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that was definitely personal, but yeah, I don't know that most of the. I mean, I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but thinking back on it, it seems to me like most of the
Yeah.
violence is in those two parts, and like
Right.
I love
And-
the Northmen.
Oh yeah. And I'm not saying like I don't like the action scenes. I just feel like the way that they're written in this book didn't intrigue me as much as
So-
the other elements of the book.
Maybe Logan's in general, because it feels like they're kind of like it feels like he's just stumbling into fights all the time, and that's
Yeah.
probably like how it's supposed to be, but it's like okay, so like when they try to lose when he's walking through by the whores and everything, and the navigator pulls out the money and he tries to get robbed. It's like he had nothing to do with that. Like everyone
Yeah.
else is getting him into trouble. And he's just like,
he's convinced that he's just unlucky with fights,
yeah.
but I mean, I don't know. I feel like when you're on guard for a fight, you end up in a fight more often than not. And like that's kind of, I feel like that's like kind of one of the morals of Logan's story. Like if you're looking for somebody to stab you in the back, you're gonna find them, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
I wonder how the dogmen and them are going to react when they figure out Logan's alive.
Yeah, that's one of the things that was like killing me my first time through is like, but they don't know. They keep saying back to the mud with the bloody nine or whatever, and I'm just like, no, he's roaming around, dog.
Yeah.
He's out there somewhere.
What do we think is going to go in the box?
I mean, I think they have to have it to move the seed.
So you think the seed goes in the box? Well, I mean, obviously, but
Yeah, but I mean, I just
genuinely
feel like
don't
that's.
know.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. But anyways,
I see. That makes me change like what I was thinking, because I didn't see the seed as kind of like a physical thing. Like I felt like it was more like a
well, no, I mean, Baez does say that it's like of the other side. Like it's like metaphysical
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But then
Okay.
what about Vitari? We didn't talk about her.
Oh
Still,
yeah,
the
yeah.
redhead.
You had a point about Vitari.
That's the chick with Glocta, right? At the end.
Yeah.
I was just saying. I already brought that up. Like whenever
Oh, you
yeah,
wanted the
you-
romance.
the
I
relationship.
wanted the
You wanted
romance
the
because I want Glocta to be happy, and it's
Yeah.
I guess I might just be sick because of that, but
I think she's tough.
oh yeah,
One
for
of the
sure.
three
Yeah, she's crazy tough. I mean, she
And
goes
then-
head to head with Logan and like has him on a back foot
Yeah.
with
And
her
then-
like chain whip thing.
Yeah, and then I guess she's gonna be a spy for Salt though.
Yeah, which that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so are you guys ready to move on to your ratings?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I know we've got 3 categories. We've got plot, character, and setting. We're going to do any decimal point out of 10 that we'd like to do. And I'd like to add a 4th one, and that's
Okay.
how likely are you to continue?
Okay. Yeah, I'm down.
But okay, let's start with plot. Dylan, you want to go first?
Okay, plot. If plot's a hard one because, like we were talking about with the first part, like it was kind of all over the place. And so, like,
Yeah.
if I was just gonna go off the first part, like it would be not good. But 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 we get to the second part, stuff's coming together. I still feel like it's a little all
Slow.
over. Well, no, not slow, but kind of all over the place because, like, yeah, there's going to be fighting in the north, but there's also going to be fighting in the south. And then it brought up, like, this person called the Tanner that's starting a revolution inside the place. So there's fighting everywhere, but at least we have a clear goal now of our, like, we're going to the end of the world. We're going to go get the seed, and we're going to get to Khalil. And so, like, I feel like with the second part added in, I would probably put it like a 7.5 on plot.
Like a 7.5.
7.5. Okay.
Nice. For me, and I'll kind of have to defend myself here, but I think like judging it off of this book, not where it could go or things like that. Judging it off of this book, I feel like the plot was kind of like everywhere, and yeah, a little bit of stuff was brought together at the end, but it was still like more setup. So I didn't feel a lot of like what's the word? Closure. I did not feel a lot of closure. And so that's why I'm going to rate the plot slightly lower than normal, because I didn't feel like what this book was about was clearly defined that well. And so I'm going to give it a 5.2.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm not gonna attack you for that because I'm right there with you. Now I will say if you're rereading, if you're looking for rereadability, the plot is like 10 out of 10. There's so many breadcrumbs, and
Yeah.
by the way, you guys are really observant because you caught some breadcrumbs that I didn't catch the first time through for sure. But
To be fair, I listened to it twice and read it once. So
Jeez,
yeah.
my man's out here on the grind.
Yep. But so oh man, I'm gonna say 6. Split the difference 6. In the second half of the story saves it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
I
I'd
had
agree.
if I was reading this through raw and never having seen anything about it before, I'd say probably 4.5. But the rereadability and just how crazy good the second half is to me bumps it up to closer to a 6.
Yeah.
that almost makes me want to bring mine down a little bit.
Now, the first half is painfully slow, and the second half is not that much
Well,
faster.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
my rating is basically just the second. Like I don't feel like I even included if I include the first half, like it brings it so much lower.
Yeah.
Like I just don't even want to include that in the plot.
But okay, let's get to the
next
saving
one.
grace of these books. What do you think about the
Yeah.
characters?
Dylan, you want to go first again?
The characters are fantastic. I know we have our problem with Jazal, and I'm hoping he gets saved in the coming books. That would probably be my only complaint as far as characters, because everyone's got their own unique characteristic, and like they're all like really thought out, and even Jazal is, but it's like there's only so many chapters where I want to see somebody being just a vain asshole, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just like I get that's his character, but like there was no, I feel like there was like there was development, but it was over the whole book and it was very little. And so like Jazal kind of brings the characters down for me a little, but I'm still gonna give it like an 8.59 on characters.
Okay.
Okay.
For me, so I think I kind of talked about this earlier. Like a lot of the characters felt like very tropey to me, except for Glokta, and so that's gonna kind of bring down my rating a little bit more. But I do really like the depthness. The depthness, is that a word? The depth of the characters that there were. So I'm gonna give characters like a 6.7.
Well, okay, all right. We might have arguments about this one. Okay, for me, the characters are like 9.2. Because here's the thing, I hate Giselle, and I absolutely believe that Joe Abercrombie wanted me to hate
Giselle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anything that Giselle does is something that a person with that character would like he's never doing anything that isn't authentic to the character that is
That is Giselle.
established.
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%. I just
I
think
do
maybe it
agree with
was
that.
like it was the amount, like
Yes, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Like-
I can totally get with you there. I mean,
yeah.
but I think that that is intentional. That might be just wishful thinking,
Right.
Like I'm like aspiring or
Like he's
ascribing
hammering
something.
it in our
Right.
heads.
Yeah,
Well-
ascribing something to his genius that he was just like, no, here's a character. But I think the chapter is supposed to feel melodramatic because
Yeah.
Giselle is melodramatic.
I just feel
think-
like a lot of his chapters could have been completely taken out of the book.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I guess why I kind of went solo too is because there was a lot of times where like I'd get to a new chapter and it'd be someone's new POV, and I'd just kind of be like, oh, I gotta get through this. And so like that kind of contributes to like if my characters are gonna be like a 9 or a 10, there's not a single one in there that I'm like that I'm, struggling to read through, even if I don't like
Right.
them necessarily, I'm enjoying reading them. And there were definitely times where I wasn't enjoying reading certain characters' chapters.
Right. Well, I will say that I think Joe Abercrombie is expecting the reader to trust him to give them
Oh,
a
for sure.
payoff
Oh,
on
for
the
sure.
characters.
Yeah.
So like if you haven't gotten the payoff, then you're in like limbo. Like I don't know if I'm ever gonna like this character or like what the character did for the plot.
Yeah.
So I do think in the first book he's asking you to trust him a lot.
Oh, for sure.
Between the plot and like Giselle, specifically Giselle.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we at on the world? What's your rating for the setting, Dylan?
I really like Ardua. Ardua,
Adjua.
Adjua, whatever. You know what I fucking meant. I like that. I can just imagine like this huge tower and like this like big citadel around it, and it reminds me of I don't know. I get like Final Fantasy vibes from it.
Oh, yeah.
Now as far as everywhere else, we haven't. I mean, it's just okay. Like the North is North. Like I'm imagine like Game of Thrones, the North, Wasteland, and barbarians, and are not necessarily barbarians, but like big tough Vikings, and then in the South is like I'm imagining like uh,
A desert.
yeah, like Arabian Nights, like and so like I'm hoping that the setting, like I'm hoping like the old world or wherever they're going to the west. I think it's to the west in that map you sent us.
hmm
I'm
Yeah,
hoping
the old empire.
I'm hoping it adds a little more depth to the setting. I'm probably gonna go. It's probably gonna be my lowest rating. I'm probably gonna go like a 5.5.
Yeah. I'm kind of gonna go the opposite. So like I really liked like the setting of the world. Like anytime like there's like prose describing like the scenery or the world around it, like the physical setting of the world, I just thought was great. Like the Tower of the Maker, and like I just always felt like I could see everything. You know what I'm saying? And and so that kind of goes like with the physical setting, with like the spiritual magical setting kind of. I'm also like very intrigued at like all of the powers and things like that, and I think those are also well written. And so like I would put the setting of like the setting of the world as we know it that is explored in this book alone. Like yeah, there's obviously more, but what was explored in this book, I would give like a 9.
Okay,
Really?
that's interesting. So
Yeah,
I think
I'm kind of surprised by that too.
where I land on this, if I detach myself from the rest of the world, I think book one setting is like a 5.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
There are parts of it that I really like the Agriont. You can like really feel how opulent
Yeah.
and like grand everything is.
Yeah.
With the Great Northern Library, um, you know, when it's talking about the walls of Dagaska crumbling and the massive city and all that, like, yeah, I don't know. There are some parts that I really like,
Yeah.
but by and large, the setting is like, set it and forget it. Like, he largely doesn't interact with the setting in book one,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
except to say people traveled from point A to point B. And like, here's a pretty description of it, but like, then we're gonna get back to these characters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, like he describes Adua. Did I say it right that time?
Yes, yes, he did.
Really, really, he describes it really well, and like I said, it really gives me like cool, like old, like Final Fantasy vibes. I can see the Tower of the Maker, like it's
The
really cool.
statues on the Kingsway.
Yeah, yeah. But at the end of the day, like it's still just kind of like a city, and like when I think like fantasy, like I'm just imagining like I don't even know
Like White Spires and
yeah, I'm just imagining like these grand fucking places, and then like you've got like so like in the north it would be like ice freaking castles and stuff like that, or like and then like if you've got like a lush place, you got like a fairy uh
something more
forest.
fantastical.
Yeah, something more
Yeah.
fantastical. And so I feel like especially like the way it describes the north and uh Gert the south.
Garkle.
Gurkle,
Yeah.
the way it describes it just reminds me like a little too real worldly, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it is
Yeah.
really grounded, except for that is the one thing I really like about the plot, except for the like little things that are not like not realistic. Like
Yeah.
he does such a good job of like peppering them in and making them like mystical, or like, just mysterious, I guess. Like the House of the Maker looming over the whole city and being like this skyscraper in this medieval,
Yeah. That nobody can get into. That was probably my favorite part of the setting was it's this huge tower that nobody can get into and it's just like looking over everything.
Mhm. Yeah, so I do. It's not that I don't like the world. It's just not.
Fleshed out enough yet?
It's
Yeah,
not
Yeah.
it's not opened up, and you don't see all of the interplay yet. So I think
Yeah.
in book one setting for me, five.
Fair enough.
yeah.
And then what was the last one we were doing? You're wanting to read the
How
next?
likely are you to
Yeah.
continue?
9 out of 10.
Okay.
If you would have asked me that 10 chapters before the end of the book, I would have said like 2 out of 10.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that.
So
Okay.
like, but it was genuine. Like the last 10 chapters of the book set up for the series so much that it's just like, okay, well, I obviously have to go on now.
I'm gonna do so I definitely want to read the next book, well the next two books. It's not on a priority list for me.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like there's way other books that I've been into that I would love to read the next ones on, especially when we're about to start another book, and then we're gonna have my book for that the month after that, and I feel like there's other books that
Right.
I'm
Well,
a
I
lot more
wouldn't
interested in.
I wouldn't say this is like on your priority list. I would say like how likely
Just
are
in
you to keep
general.
reading? Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, well then if we're gonna go by that, like I mean, 100%, I'm gonna read the next books. It's just that's
It's
kind of
just a
why I was
matter
adding.
of when, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of why I added priority because it's like
Right. Well,
how
if it's
much.
priority, it
Maybe the
would be
question.
kind of lower for
Yeah.
me too, but
Well, how much? I think the question should be is like how much do you want to read the next book or something like that? Like because like
okay.
I'm a reader, so like I'm gonna read the next books. And, like I want to
Right.
figure out what happened. But like as far as like when, we'll see. I mean, I own them. I've already got them
Yeah.
bought.
I
But
also have them bought.
yeah,
They're
I'm
sitting on
just
my
gonna.
shelf
I'll
staring.
I'll say if we're going off like what I just said, I'll say 6.5, 7.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. For me, it was a 10 out of 10 the first time, but just if only because of Glocta and Logan, and it's a 10 out of 10 this time too. Like even if we don't
Yeah.
continue to read this series as a trio, I'm gonna reread it anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said, in book one, you really do have to trust Joe Abercrombie. So I mean, I totally get why it would be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
I could easily see how book two, just off where we're at right now, book two could be so much better. Glockta's going to like a war zone. They're on a ship going to the like. I could see easily how book two could be amazing.
Yeah, how the world and the plot could just explode open.
Explode, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, guys, we did it.
First book.
Book one.
The
Shut it
first book,
down.
we did it. Thanks everyone for listening. We've gotten a ton of like positive feedback from everyone, and we really appreciate it. If you haven't already, share, like, subscribe, follow the podcast on your preferred platform. We have our YouTube comments. As always, keep them spoiler free, but obviously we've read to the end of this book, so spoiler free for the next books, because I know Whitson's kind of like talked about us possibly going on to read them. So, but yeah, that's a
just
place for
book one.
discussion. Yeah, just book one for discussion and things like that. Also, don't forget to leave a comment of a fantasy question that we might be able to answer next week, next time we open up the podcast. It's hard to say like next week, because we do it like tri-monthly. So
Yeah, we're gonna back to back them.
yeah.
We'll be reading Warbreaker tomorrow, probably.
Which
Yes.
I'm looking so forward to. Like, it's gonna
I
be hard
me
for me to
too.
stop at chapter 1.
I'm so excited for Warbreaker. So we were going to be reading the prologue in chapter 1 of Warbreaker for episode 4 of the podcast. So if you want to read along with us, we're really not going far. It's two little chapters if you count the prologue as a chapter. So
And that'll be on the 1st, right?
yeah,
We're gonna do it?
that will be released on the 1st, and then episode 5 will be released on the 15th. So but yeah, we did it, guys. First book.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate you
thanks
tuning
for listening to us just talk about books.
Yeah.
in.
That's pretty much what we just do. We just talk to each other.
Yeah, so join us next episode as we crack open Warbreaker. We'll see y'all.